The annoying ringing of the alarm clock was echoing in my head. Beep, beep, beep. The alarm clock rang, irritating my already aching head. How much longer? I muttered, sleepily groping for the nightstand. Finding my phone, I managed to turn it off with difficulty. The sun was already shining brightly through the window, flooding the room with light. The day promised to be sunny. There was a party yesterday, I recalled, pressing my temples. It's good that I remember at least something. It's not my first time. I'm a young guy who loves parties and drinking. Thank God it's a day off, I thought. No need to rush anywhere, I can just relax. I sat for a few more minutes on the edge of the bed, coming to my senses. Then I got up and trudged to the shower, hoping the cool water would wash away the remnants of sleep and the headache. After getting out of the shower, I felt a surge of energy. My condition was significantly better, although far from fully recovered. The refreshing shower, as always, did its job. It invigorated my body and cleared my thoughts a bit. Feeling the growing hunger, I headed to the kitchen. Living alone, I didn't bother much with preparing food in advance, so the fridge was usually empty. In such cases, the café around the corner, 1 block from where I live, always saved me. I love going there. Especially after a party like that, I always crave something unhealthy, like scrambled eggs with lots of bacon and black coffee. For me, it's just what I need to get my system going and feel better. After not so quickly searching for something to wear and sniffing shirts to find a cleaner one, luck finally smiled upon me. Yes, I know what you're going to say. What the hell, dude? You don't even keep your clothes clean? I'm just a bachelor, and being an avid bachelor, I didn't really bother with cleaning and tidiness. Just accept that fact. Throwing on a shirt and slipping into my sneakers, I stepped out into the hallway. Turning the key in the lock twice, I made sure the door was closed and headed to the elevator. After waiting briefly, I entered the elevator. The moment I stepped in, the elevator started making an unpleasant noise, as if something was broken. Some prolonged sounds. My ears stubbornly refused to let that noise into my already aching head. I pressed the floor button several times, but the elevator continued to make that annoying sound. As you might have guessed, escaping the elevator wasn't so easy. I just covered my ears and waited for the elevator to take me down. Oh God, I sighed, breathing in the fresh air as I headed towards the cafe. To be honest, I don't really remember how I crossed that block. I was probably lost in my thoughts, trying to recall something. I can't even say what I was thinking about. Sometimes you seem to be thinking, but you're not really aware of your thoughts. You're just drifting in a stream of consciousness, oblivious to what's happening around you. That's exactly the state I was in. Snapping out of it and coming to my senses, I immediately saw the sign of my favorite cafe. Entering inside, I noticed a free table and headed towards it. I sat down. A friendly waitress immediately approached me. Hi, Mason. Hi, Sophia. How are you? Oh, I'm good. And you, as always, looking in top shape, she said with a smirk. I'm doing well, thanks. I nodded. Yesterday was a great day, though I remember little of it. My head hurts. I need something to eat. We'll fix that quickly, Sophia laughed. What would you like to order? Give me a whole plate of bacon, scrambled eggs, and black coffee. Excellent choice, she exclaimed. As always, spot on. In this cafe, they had known me well for a long time. I came here every weekend, well, almost every weekend, and Sophia and I had long since become like old friends. Some song was playing on the cafe's TV, but it wasn't the melody that caught my attention. Instead, it was another irritating sound in my head. It buzzed annoyingly, making it hard for me to focus. Within a minute, an appetizing plate of bacon and scrambled eggs was already in front of me. I immediately dug in, unable to resist my hunger. It took less than a minute for the plate to be empty. I took a sip of the aromatic coffee, savoring its slightly bitter taste. Across from me, a man was sitting at a table, engrossed in reading a newspaper. Noticing my gaze, He lowered the paper and, smiling, said, "Beautiful day, isn't it?" I was a bit taken aback, but quickly gathered my thoughts. "It's not bad," I replied, "though it could have started better." "How could it be better?" My companion chuckled. I thought to myself, strange guy. Not wanting to continue the conversation, I looked out the window and took another sip of coffee. "What are your plans for today? I read that there's going to be a charity concert in the park. Maybe you'd be interested," he said. Honestly, this person irritated me a little. I would have preferred to be alone right now, especially since my head was still aching. But politeness prevailed. "Yeah, nothing special," I replied. "Maybe I'll take a walk. Thanks for the tip." I turned back to the window, taking slow sips of coffee, not wanting to talk to anyone anymore. When I turned back, my companion was gone. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. I didn't even notice when he left. I must have drifted into my thoughts again. The idea of taking a walk in the park seemed like a good one. In fact, why not? After thinking it over, I paid the bill, said goodbye to the waitress, and left the cafe. Fortunately, the park was nearby, just a stone's throw away. Crossing the street, I immersed myself in its shady paths. Birdsong filled the air, but today it sounded a bit strange. Those irritating noises in my head were back, and I couldn't shake them off. I finally realized that going to the charity concert wasn't the best idea. It would be noisy there, and I needed quiet. I decided to veer off the paths and head to the far part of the park, where peace and quiet reigned. I just wanted to enjoy solitude and the beauty of nature. Finding a cozy bench under a tree, I settled down with pleasure. The sun, breaking through the tree canopy, shone on my face. After sitting on the bench for a while and enjoying the silence, I decided it was time to move on. I got up and slowly wandered through the city streets, trying to take in interesting places and reminiscing about pleasant moments in my life. Thus, strolling leisurely, I spent the rest of the day. My condition noticeably improved, but fatigue was setting in, and I felt a sharp need for rest. As I was heading home through the park, I caught a faint rustling sound behind me. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it, but a slight unease began to grow inside me. I quickened my pace. The rustling grew louder and more frequent, as if someone was darting between the bushes. It was clearly not an animal. My patience snapped. I turned around abruptly. "Hey, who's there?" I shouted. The noise stopped. No one answered. Another lunatic. "Don't mess with me! Come out!" I demanded. "Or better yet, leave. I don't like these kinds of jokes." I tried to sound threatening. Peering intently into the bushes, I saw nothing and immediately quickened my pace, hoping it was just some lunatic or a homeless person. As I walked, I kept glancing around out of the corner of my eye. But I had only gone a few dozen meters when the rustling resumed. This really pissed me off. I spun around and, without thinking, charged toward the bushes, determined to catch whoever was following me. Reaching them, I dove in. Parting the branches, I was about to grab the person when they turned towards me. A face. No, it wasn't a face. It was two glowing eyes, hovering in blackness. A bolt of fear struck me and I jumped back, unable even to scream. I just stood there, staring at this creature. In front of me was not a person, or rather, there was no face visible at all. Two eyes floated in the void, staring at me. My legs gave out, turning to jelly. It felt like an eternity had passed since I decided to approach those damn bushes. I spun around and bolted, feeling an unprecedented rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins. My ears rang, and somewhere on the edge of my consciousness, I heard an awful, mocking sound, like someone was laughing maliciously behind me. I ran, not looking back, until I burst out of the park onto a busy street, where a stream of cars roared. Running a bit further, I stopped, gasping for air in shock. My breath was ragged, my chest ached, and my mind was in chaos. What was that? Who was that? Why? Questions swarmed in my mind. but there were no answers. Why did I even go in there? What was I thinking? I scolded myself, unable to stop the trembling in my body. Home was just a little further. Taking a deep breath, I slowly walked down the street, trying to calm the shaking in my limbs. Questions still buzzed in my head. Who was that? What did they want? What was I doing there? Maybe it was just some vagrant and I imagined the rest, I thought, trying to reassure myself. Yeah, my imagination sure can come up with stuff like that. It wasn't the best idea at all, I berated myself. What was I thinking? I should have just gone home, left the park, and that would be it. Why all this trouble? I tormented myself with questions that had no answers. As I approached the entrance, I was about to dial the code to open the door when it suddenly swung open and hit me on the shoulder. I barely managed to step aside before someone knocked me to the ground. A wave of fear washed over me again. But in front of me was just a young guy from the floor above. He was in a hurry and didn't notice me as he rushed down the stairs. Swinging the door open with force, he knocked me down once more. Realizing his mistake, he apologized and helped me up. Not wanting to share my distress, I mumbled, "It's okay," and went into the building. My heart was still pounding in my chest. "Quite a day," I muttered under my breath. But before I could catch my breath as I pressed the elevator button, I felt someone grab my shoulder from behind and squeeze it tightly. My hands went cold, my legs went numb. In the reflection of the metal doors, I saw a huge black figure gripping my shoulder with one hand. Only two burning eyes pierced through the darkness. There was no doubt, it was the same creature I had encountered in the park. I couldn't utter a word, and I didn't have the strength to turn around. My body felt like jelly, refusing to obey. The elevator doors opened. In desperation, I rushed inside and, frantically pressing the buttons, closed the doors. When I turned around, no one was there. I slowly slid down the wall to the floor, feeling cold sweat trickle down my back. The elevator doors closed, and it began to carry me up. What is happening to me? I tormented myself with questions. Are these hallucinations? Or am I losing my mind from lack of sleep and alcohol? I don't believe anything anymore. Reaching my floor, I bolted to my door. My hands shook so badly that I had difficulty getting the key into the lock. After what felt like an eternity, I finally managed to turn it twice and get inside my apartment. Slamming the door shut, I pressed my back against it, listening to the silence. I felt like someone was outside, that I could hear faint rustling sounds, although no one had been on the landing when I had come up. My heart pounded like a drum, echoing in my ears. An indistinct noise came from behind the door, followed by footsteps. A cold sweat covered my entire body, and goosebumps ran down my spine. I held my breath, trying not to move. A thought flickered in my mind, like when I was a child and someone knocked on the door, and I pretended no one was home. The rustling behind the door did not stop. It was as if someone was impatiently dragging something across the door, scratching it. I stood there, holding my breath, too scared to move. My eyes remained fixed on the peephole. Suddenly, something flickered, and a loud crash sounded as something fell to the floor, having stumbled over my shoes. And then, silence. The rustling stopped. I sat there, paralyzed by fear, not knowing what to do next. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I cautiously assumed that the stranger had left. I hope it's over now. I sighed in relief. I never thought today would turn out to be so strange, crossed my mind. Then a voice came from the kitchen. So, how did you imagine your perfect day? This time I just got up and, with the light off, continued toward the source of the sound. In the kitchen, at my table, someone was clearly sitting there. Only the darkness allowed me to see two glowing eyes, which seemed to be scanning the room. "What did you say?" I croaked, realizing that my questions hadn't been fully formed. "You didn't answer my question," came the reply. "How do you envision your perfect day?" "Well, definitely not like this," I muttered, the lump in my throat making it hard to speak clearly. "What do you want from me? How did you get in here?" "It's not about how I got in," the voice said. "The question is, how did you end up here? Where did I end up? In my apartment. Call it what you want." "And what else could it be called?" I blurted out. Silence once again enveloped the room, pressing down on me with renewed intensity. I didn't know what to do. I had nothing on hand that could help me in this situation. Yes, it might have been foolish to confront him, but what was I supposed to do? My head throbbed again, and those annoying noises buzzed in my ears. I couldn't ignore them, but what was happening right now concerned me far more. "Why are you in my apartment?" I mustered the courage to ask. "I'm waiting," came the reply. "Waiting for whom? And how did you get in here? What do you want?" I fired off questions one after another. "I'm curious. What do you need?" the voice replied with sarcasm. "I need you to leave my apartment immediately," I said firmly. Seemingly drawing strength from my own words, I charged at the person sitting at the table. With a yell, I leaped at him, aiming to bring all my weight down on him. But just as I was about to make contact, I felt a sharp impact as my head slammed against the wall. It was as if no one was there behind the table. I had simply launched myself forward, jumped without finding any support, and collided headfirst with the wall. A sharp pain shot through my brow, and a stream of blood ran down my face. "That hurts so much!" I cried out. Dizziness swept over me, and everything around me swam. I quickly raised my eyes and was stunned. The person I had just encountered was calmly standing at the other end of the room, staring intently at me. "Enough of this." His voice was sharp. "Now, you're coming with me." I scrambled to my feet, still pressing my hand to my brow. Blood was now streaming into my eye. I wasn't ready to give up. There was nowhere to run, so without thinking, I made another attempt to attack him. I approached him cautiously, determined that this time he wouldn't escape. Grabbing the stranger by the arms, I tried to throw him to the floor, but as before, I found nothing to grasp. My fingers seemed to pass right through him, and I crashed to the floor again, hitting my head on the tiled surface. My head pounded more intensely. Strange sounds like a swarm of annoying insects buzzed in my ears, drowning out everything else. Struggling to lift my head, I saw the enormous black figure with burning eyes approaching me. "Such a pity." His voice was cold yet calm. "It seems we're going to have to part ways today." A severe headache gripped my temples like a vice. It felt as if the weight of the world had descended upon my head, threatening to crush it. His icy hands grabbed me. No, they weren't hands at all. The skin felt like bones, cold, piercing to the very core. A nauseating tightness gripped my insides, creeping up to my throat. My head spun and throbbed with pain. He lifted me effortlessly, as if I were a mere feather. The strange light still burned in his eyes. My heart pounded furiously, and my whole body shook. Without hesitation, he simply threw me towards the window. I barely had time to grasp what was happening before I crashed through the glass and saw the sky above me. I felt my back approaching the ground. The wind whipped through my hair. Time seemed to stop as I plummeted. I was paralyzed by icy fear, a short, sharp sound, and then darkness. The sound again. "This is so irritating," I thought. "These beeping noises, beep, beep, beep. How long is this going to go on?" A frustrated thought flashed through my mind. "Wait!" I jolted myself awake. "How did I get here? Where am I?" Bright light pierced my eyes and I couldn't move. My arms were in casts and my head was wrapped in bandages. I was in a hospital room. My friend was sitting by my side, asleep. I wanted to say something to him, but I couldn't utter a word. My whole body ached. Finally, forcing out a word, I asked, "Where am I?" My friend heard me. He jumped up, looked at me sharply, and ran out. Moments later, a doctor entered the room. He shone a flashlight in my eyes and started scribbling notes on a tablet. I didn't remember much about what happened next. I can only say that I had been very drunk.
There was a big party, and after getting plastered, I stumbled out onto the street. While crossing the road, I was struck by a passing car. I had been in a coma for several weeks, but it felt like I had lived through the entire day. Everything had seemed so real, as if it were the absolute truth.